and welcome back to a new video. Today I'm doing a really exciting video and this is going to be my top favourite books that I read in 2017, and I read some really fantastic books in 2017. I'm really excited about them, so I've actually picked 17. So I am doing my top 17 of 2017. I know some people do this, I know some people have stopped doing this because it kind of gets ridiculous as the years will go on. Next year I'll probably do 15 because 18 seems like an annoying number, but I just happened to have, like, it was difficult. Some didn't make this list and I was like, oh, and I struggled kind of narrowing it down. So I thought, yeah, I'll go with 17. And again, like I say, some still were like, oh, should that one be in or that one? But I've got them actually in order of 17 to 1. Obviously kind of the lower half, like the first, like the top 10 are pretty much a solid top 10. And then the bottom 7 are kind of, could be mixed around a little bit. In 2017, I set myself a little goal to each month pick up the Waterstones Children's Book of the Month. And I kind of wanted to delve a little bit more into middle grade reads, so you might see some of them on this list. And in 2016, I had decided to try and read a little bit more diversely and about more characters that were, you know, diverse and not like myself, you know, in kind of different ranges. And I feel like I continued that on to 2017. I definitely think I read more diversely this year than I did last year. And then in 2018, my new goal is obviously I'll continue reading diversely and I'm going to continue reading some middle grade books. I've definitely gotten into some of them from this year. But my new goal for 2018 in reading is going to be trying to read more non-fiction books. I'm really excited about that. And so maybe each year I'm just going to try and add a little bit different variety into my reading. So yeah, 2018 is going to be non-fiction. So hopefully at the end of 2018 you'll see some non-fiction books on the list. But yeah, so let's get into the list. So the first one, number 17, I have A Quiet Kind of Thunder by Sarah Bernard. And this definitely would probably be higher on the list had I have read it closer to. I read this really early on in the year. I think it was February. I read this in February. And I don't remember everything about it, which is kind of why I kind of put it a little bit lower down, because I remember really loving it and enjoying it. It gave it a really great high rating. And it's about this girl called Steffi who is mute, and she meets Reese, R-H-Y, Reese? I don't know how to, I can't think how to pronounce that now. And he is deaf, so they can communicate, and he comes to school, and because she's mute, well, she's selective mute, but doesn't really like to be classed as selective mute because it's obviously not selective. Like, anyway, let's not go into that whole rabbit hole there. But she was, and now she's kind of started to talk a little bit more to certain select people. So yeah, anyway, so she knows sign language because she had learnt that because her dad thought it'd be a good idea, so she's able to communicate with the new boy at school, which is really nice for him because he obviously is coming to the school, and before he went to a specialist school where a lot of people could speak sign language, so now he's kind of at this new school where not really many people do. And it was just a really sweet story. It is kind of a romance, it is kind of a love story, but it's got a bit of diversity in there, it's got a bit of a mix. And it was really fantastic. I really did enjoy this. I gave it, I think, 4 or 4.5, kind of in that middle bit there. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It would have been higher on the list again had it not have been so long that I read it. However, there is a book that I read in January that's quite a bit higher because I remember pretty much everything about it, so I kind of consider that book stuck with me a little bit more than this book did. So yeah, it's A Quiet Kind of Thunder. Okay, so the next one on my list is actually the last book I read of the year, and it is The Whispering Mountain by Joan Aiken. And this book was released in the 60s, I believe. Yeah, 1968, so it's quite an old book, and it's set in a little town in Wales, and there's quite a lot of Welsh language into this book, which I didn't mind. Some of it I didn't understand. You know, just sometimes they put the odd word in Welsh or a sign in Welsh or a certain little village or something. And then they've got a bit of kind of Welsh lingo in there as well. But this book just kind of felt really cosy and lovely. It's about this little boy called Owen who lives with his grandfather, him and his grandfather don't really get on very well, and his grandfather owns or runs the museum in this little town, and he ends up going on this whole adventure. And it's just really cute. The way that it's told feels very nostalgic. It feels like something that I read when I was a child. I remember reading The Weird Stone of Brisingamen, and this kind of gave me those kind of vibes. I don't know if that really makes sense. So for me, it just kind of felt really comforting and cozy, and it was just a really enjoyable read. However, I will say there's a lot of characters in this book, and I read it over the Christmas period, which now might have been a mistake because I didn't read it all in one kind of go. I kind of took a break for like half a week because I was busy, and then a new few days here and there just because a lot of things were going on at Christmas. And then I kind of started to forget, oh wait, who's this and who's that? So I think had I have just read it kind of more in one go rather than broken up as I did, I would have enjoyed it a lot more because I was really loving the first half at the start, and then at the end I did enjoy it, but I kind of had lost track a little bit. Yes, that's Whispering Mountain, and that was a really enjoyable one. I will be reading more by this author. She wrote The Wolves of Willoughby Chase, which I've never read. I know a lot of people have, and it's kind of a children's classic. I've not read that one, so I will want to read that one in the future. The next one on my list is the only graphic novel, and that is Lumberjanes, and this is by, it kind of just has, you've got Stevenson, Ellis, Waters and Allen, but Noelle Stevenson I believe wrote this. And this is the first graphic novel that I ever read, and I absolutely completely have fallen in love with it. I love this. I will read it many more times in the future, and I absolutely can't wait to get my hands on the other volumes. This is volume 1, and it kind of has 4 comics inside, so 4 like episodes or 4 chapters, and I just loved it. The artwork is beautiful, and it was just so cool, and it's about this camp and these girls, and it's just fantastic, and it's got supernatural in, and yeah, this was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. I'll definitely be reading more graphic novels as well in 2018, so yeah, loved that one. Next we have Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. I'm sure you've all heard of this one. It was different than what I thought it was going to be, but I really enjoyed it, and I kind of haven't been able to forget about it. I read this one in February as well, so I read it quite early on in the year, and it's really stuck with me. I definitely preferred the book over the film. I did watch the film this year as well, and I'm looking forward to reading Hollow City. I haven't continued with the series yet, but I definitely will. The characters in this were really interesting. I was able to read this really quick. I just kind of got very invested in the story at the time. I'm sure you've all heard of this one. It's about this boy who, I don't really want to ruin it. I'm not sure and he meets these peculiar children. I can't really explain it because I didn't know that much going in. I just knew it was about these weird peculiar children and this boy and this whole thing. A lot of magical things happen, but it's not creepy, it's not scary. That's kind of the misconception about this book. It kind of looks a bit creepy and scary because it does have these photographs inside, which are old photographs that are creepy looking photographs, but the story itself isn't horror or thriller at all. It's just this really nice story of this boy who meets these peculiar children, and it's a really cute little tale, so I really did enjoy this one, and it just visually looks fantastic, and it's definitely stuck with me as well. And the next one is If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo, and this was really fantastic. This is about a transgender girl who moves to a new town to move in with her dad, and it's about her going to school, and nobody knows, like at her new school, nobody knows that she was born as a boy. Like she just doesn't tell anybody, she's just kind of going about and living her life, and I feel like it's a really interesting kind of place to set the book. This is the first book that I've read with a transgender main character, or I think any transgender character actually at all, and so I kind of learnt a lot about that. And also I thought it was interesting how it wasn't about the time when she was going through, you know, hormonal changes, or first coming to terms with the fact that she was a girl and not a boy. You know, it wasn't about that. It was about her afterwards, and then just kind of her living life in a high school. So it's kind of just like a contemporary high school thing, but it also had this involved, which I thought was really interesting, and definitely maybe an important decision to do, so it's not all focused on one thing. So it's just her being a normal girl, but she obviously has a secret, and you know, things like that. And what's really interesting about this one is Meredith Russo is also transgender, so she was able to obviously give a little bit more insight with obviously knowing these things herself. So yeah, this was a really fantastic book, and I really thought this one was great. Next one on my list is Out of My Mind by Sharon M. Draper. This was fantastic, and it was just, this book's definitely one that stuck with me. This book is about an 11-year-old girl called Melody who is in a wheelchair, and she isn't able to have much movement in her legs or her arms or any much control of her body at all, and she also cannot talk. So she's been like this her whole life. She was born this way, and I can't quite remember the name, and I don't want to mess it up and say the wrong thing that she has, so I'm sorry, I can't. It was a while ago I read this one. I read it in the summer. So yeah, this is a story about Melody, and obviously it's told from first person, so you're inside her mind and kind of can see how she is seeing the world. And a lot of stuff happens in this book, and it's really quite hard hitting. And what's really interesting is there was a point in this book that really just struck a chord with me, and Melody, her life kind of changes throughout the course of this book in certain ways. And then something happens where you think things are kind of going a bit well for her, and you're really happy for her. Obviously you want things to go well for her. You obviously feel for this character because you're in her mind and you can see her frustrations. And then she kind of ends up, something really unfair happens in the book, if things obviously weren't already unfair enough. But like it's something small, it's not a huge thing, but it's unfair, and you can tell that Melody is so hurt by it, because obviously she's been born like this, so she's kind of used to the way, her way of living, and even though she finds it hard and frustrating at times, it is all that she's known. So then this other thing, which is just kind of a little thing, but it's something important to her, and then something kind of unfair happens, and I thought, oh, surely they're not going to let that happen, and it's going to all wrap around. You know, like how sometimes like fairy tales, and all things, oh, and it was fine in the end. And this book didn't do that. It didn't sugarcoat anything. It didn't be like, oh, you know, it's fine, because you wanted everything you wanted this nice thing to happen for Melody, and things kind of got unfair, and I was really sad about it. And I was like, oh, and then it kind of put into perspective that, yeah, you know, things are unfair, and that's kind of what this book was saying. You know, it was just like I say, it was a little thing that Melody was excited about, she was looking forward to, and something unfair happened. And it wasn't even anything to do with her disability. That's what I liked. It was nothing to do with her disability. Her disability did not limit her in this situation. It wasn't like, oh, it's unfair, I can't do this because of my disability. It wasn't that at all. It was just a general thing that could have happened to anybody, this little unfair situation. But you really didn't want it to happen to Melody, because you really wanted her to have something good and lovely. And then the way that she dealt with it was really interesting, and I thought that it was, I think this is one that everyone should read, and definitely give you a better outlook on maybe people with disabilities or people different from yourselves. And I thought it was a really good book. I feel like I've kind of confused my description of it, but it really was fantastic. The next one is a middle grade mystery, and it's Scarlet and Ivy by Sophie Cleverley, and I absolutely love mysteries. I love Agatha Christie, she's one of my absolute favourite authors, and last year I discovered middle grade mystery via Robin Stevens, and then I picked this up on a whim, and I've read the second book in this series, which really wasn't quite as good as this one, and I loved the mystery in this series, this book. It's set in a boarding school, and it's just so interesting. I loved the setting and the vibes. I really enjoyed the mystery. I didn't see quite a few things coming, which I loved. In the second book, I was kind of like, oh, this mystery is not as good as the first. In this first book, it's got the vibes and it's got the mystery, and it kind of had the suspense. It's a fantastic middle grade book, full of great mystery, and I think I gave this one 5 stars. And I am looking forward to continuing this series. I think there's like 6 books, but as I say, the second one was a little bit disappointing after this first one, but that definitely doesn't take away from the great mystery of this first book. If you enjoy middle grade and you enjoy mystery and you've kind of read the Robin Stevens books, maybe it's Murder Most Unladylike, then I think you would enjoy this one. The next book is the first book that I read in 2017, and it is The Goldfish Boy by Lisa Thompson. I loved this. This was the Waterstones Book of the Month for January, and it kind of made me think, yes, I'm definitely doing the right thing here, picking up the Waterstones Children's Book of the Month, because this was great. This is about a boy who has OCD, and it's gotten so severe that he's kind of confined himself to his house. And again, I think it's first person, and is it first person? I need to look now. Yeah, it is. So you see the world from his perspective again, and it's kind of looking into him and his life, and it is quite a lot about him dealing with his OCD, but also there's a mystery. So he spends a lot of time kind of observing the neighbours, and then he sees this little boy go missing, and then he's the only person who's witnessed this, and it kind of becomes a bit of a mystery. Now the mystery isn't fantastic. The mystery isn't quite as fantastic as I would want it to be, but it's still very good. If the mystery would have been really blown my mind, this probably would have been a bit higher, because I thought the characters were fantastic. There were some other little parts that came into it that I loved. I love kind of the neighbourhood watch type of thing. Kind of reminded me of like Rear Window, which I absolutely love. Kind of had that vibe, like he'd watch the neighbours and the different neighbours would do different things, and I loved that. And there was this girl character in this that was just fantastic, and I loved her and her story. And I think Lisa Thompson's a really brilliant writer, so I'm really looking forward to reading her next book that comes out in January this year. So yeah, I really enjoyed The Goldfish Boy. The next one is an Agatha Christie book. It's the only Agatha Christie book that I read this year, which I'm really disappointed about, because in 2015, I think, was kind of that was the year that I set my goal to read more Agatha Christie books, and I've read quite a few. 2016, I read quite a few. This year I only read one, but you know, it's okay. I plan to read more next year. And this one is Cards on the Table. Now, I really enjoyed this, and this one doesn't get the best reviews because it's a lot about bridge, and it kind of talks a lot about bridge in this Bridge, the card game. And I didn't mind that. And it kind of has 4 different detectives looking at 4 different suspects. And I absolutely loved that. Again, as always with Agatha Christie, the end was a complete surprise. I thought I knew what was happening, I thought I knew what was going on, and then it changed and swerved the other way. And then not only that, it then swerved a completely other way, and I was like, what is going on? I loved it. It was fantastic. I absolutely always love Agatha Christie books. This one was no exception. This wasn't a disappointment. I really, really enjoyed this a lot, and I hope one day to read all of Agatha Christie's works. So yeah, loved this one. Fantastic. If you haven't read any Agatha Christie, I definitely recommend it, but don't start with Cards on the Table. I think that wouldn't be a good starting point, but definitely read Agatha Christie. The next one on my list is Seed by Lisa Heathfield. This was so fantastic, and I think had the end maybe had been a little bit different, again, it would have been a bit higher. I loved this. This is about a cult, and I don't know why I picked this up or when. I kind of just picked it up on a whim in Waterstones. I think it was on a buy one get one, and then I hadn't read it. I maybe had it a year, and then I thought, you know what, I'll read this. I mean, look at this cover, it's beautiful. And I picked it up and I started reading it. I thought, this is so interesting. I've not read anything like this before. I'd definitely like to read another book like this next year, which sounds weird, like I want to read another book about a cult, but it was just so interesting. And you see it from the perspective of this girl who's only ever lived within this situation. Obviously they don't call it a cult, but you know, she's only ever lived within this situation, and it's really weird to kind of see it through her eyes, and sometimes it's a little bit frustrating actually, because obviously you know this is ridiculous, but she doesn't, and it's hard. You kind of have to relate with it in that way. And then some crazy stuff goes down at the end of this book, and I was like, oh my gosh. It was, I really got into this one. I really enjoyed it. If you kind of think it sounds interesting, I would recommend this one. It's a bit of a slow burn to begin with though, I will say. It goes slow and slow, and then it kind of starts to add little things in. Tiny little seeds into this big kind of roaring thing coming up at the end, and I really personally loved that. I liked that it was slow burn. I liked that it took its time. But if you're not really a fan of slow burning books, then maybe this isn't for you. But I really enjoyed this one. Really fantastic. Okay, the next one on my list is kind of like a two for one. I have two more of these. So I've got 3 books in the list that I like too. Okay, so the main one that I want to talk about is The Distance Between Us by Casey West. This year I discovered Casey West's contemporary books. I'd read Pivot Point in 2015 or 2014, which is her kind of sci-fi dystopian type of book. And I discovered her contemporary books with The Fill-In Boyfriend. And I absolutely love The Fill-In Boyfriend, but it's just kind of fluffy fun. But I read it at a really perfect time. I read it when kind of things were a little bit difficult in the year, and then this was a real good pick-me-up, and I feel like I enjoyed this more because of that. And then I read this one, The Distance Between Us, and I read this on holiday, and I absolutely couldn't put it down, and I really, really loved it. Now, these aren't groundbreaking books. There's a lot of books on this list that are better than these books. There's books that I've put before this that are better quality books, you know, but I just enjoyed it so much. I had so much fun with this, and I'd read another one of her contemporaries as well this year, but I didn't enjoy it quite as much as these. And I definitely will continue to read her other books in 2018. She's become one of my new favourite authors, or like a go-to author for a book that I just know will give me great, happy feelings, and I'll just enjoy and be able to dive into and read it really quickly because I just can't wait to find out what happens. And this one's about this girl who, his mum owns this doll shop, and about this boy. You know, it's a romance. It's about this girl and this boy, and it's just cute and fun. But I don't know what it was. I just enjoyed this so much. I definitely will reread this one. This one, I don't know, maybe I would reread it. I just really like Casey West, so I wanted to put her high up here because she's definitely one of my new favourite authors, and like I said, I will be continuing to read all of her books now. I'm really, really into her works, and I just love the way that she writes everything. It's just for a happy, easy read, and sometimes that's what you need. I read this one on holiday. It was just the perfect thing. So yeah, loved these. The next one on my list is a book that just completely blew my mind, and that is More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. I read this book pretty much in a day. I thought it was going to take me a while. I kind of had read the first couple of chapters one day, and the next day I thought, I'll read a bit more. I had to finish the book. I absolutely love this. Again, it's a slow burn. It started out and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then it just got really into it. And some things happened that I couldn't believe. This is probably the most shocking experience I've had reading a book this year. I was so shocked when I read this book. And there were certain parts that completely shocked me. However, the ending wasn't exactly how I'd want it to be. Otherwise, this could have been quite a bit higher, because it literally blew me away. But the ending, I'm not sure, and the beginning was a little bit slow. But it had to be this high up because it was really clever, it was really thought-provoking, it was really shocking. I hadn't had kind of a book shock as much as this in a while, and I thought it was really well written and fantastic. Definitely will be reading more by Adam Silvera this year in 2018. I've picked up They Both Die at the End, and I can't wait to read that. But yeah, if you haven't read this yet and you have been putting it off but you have been interested in it, definitely check it out. I don't really want to go too much into detail of what it's about because I went into it not knowing much and it was 100% better, but if you've heard of it, I'm sure if you're kind of interested in it, you probably might have heard of it. So yeah, loved, more happy than not. The next one on my list is contemporary, and it's Emmy and Oliver by Robin Benway. Robin Benway is coming out of a new book in February, and I absolutely cannot wait because I loved this. I'll definitely reread it in the future. It was just everything that I wanted at the time. It's about this girl called Emmy who loves surfing, and when she was younger, her best friend Oliver went missing, and he was taken by his dad. And there was a mum, a dad, and his son, and the dad ran off and kidnapped his son, technically. And the police have been searching for them for years. It's like now, like 10 years later or something, and they haven't found him, and they've been searching for him. And let me see. Okay, yeah, Oliver. I was looking at the back. I was like, let me just see what I can tell you. Oliver returns. They find Oliver. It's like 10 years later. He's back, and it's like this whole shocking thing. And to be fair, the mystery element I feel like could have been again a little bit high. But that's just because I love mystery. But then I ended up not minding because the story was just so good and interesting, and I loved the characters. I just completely fell in love with the book and the world and just everything, and their kind of connection, Emmy and Oliver. It was just really fantastic, and the friendship, the friends that Emmy had, and the things Oliver had been through. Yeah, I just really, really, really enjoyed this one. It was really, really interesting. Can't wait to read more by this author because I thought the writing was fantastic as well. The next one on my list is Eliza Rose by Lucy Worsley. I loved this, and I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. It's about this girl called Eliza who you kind of follow her life from when she's like 11 until she's like 19 or something, and she lives in this kind of she's not, I don't know how to say it. She starts out and she gets, when she's young, she then is about to go and get engaged to somebody else because she kind of is a little bit high up. She's not kind of high in wealth, but she lives in this like little kind of palacey type of thing, and they kind of try to engage her up. Does that make sense? And things go astray, things go wrong, and she ends up after a little while working at the Tudor court with Catherine Howard, and it becomes very interesting, and I loved it. So obviously Henry VIII's in this book, and there's a lot of court intrigue, and I didn't think that was my kind of thing at all, but it absolutely was, and I got so sucked into it, and there's kind of a lot of drama going on, a lot of people. I just really, really, really loved this book. I can't really describe it well because it was a while now that I read it, so I don't remember all the details. I'm kind of missing details, but I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars. Lucy Worsley is amazing. I've watched some of her documentaries. She's fantastic. Can't wait to read her other book, which is My Name is Victoria, and I hope that she'll come out with more historical fiction because this was just everything that I wanted in a book that I didn't even know I wanted in a book. So yeah, I loved this. It was fantastic. Okay, so we're down to the top 3. Coming in at number 3, I have Frost Hollow Hall by Emma Carroll. I read this in February, and Josh got me this book for Valentine's Day, so it kind of had a little bit of a special connection there. But I just absolutely loved it. It's about this girl who goes to work in this hall as she kind of works in the kitchens, basically a servant in this hall. I think it's 1800s. When is it? 1881. So yeah. And the setting is fantastic and beautiful, and I absolutely love this story. But I did have to mention another Emma Carroll book, which was Letters from the Lighthouse, which was also fantastic, and I also gave 5 stars. So I kind of put these together. This one, I love the most, but I also loved this. Obviously this is set in, well, not obviously, but this is set in 1941 during World War II, and it's about these two children who have to evacuate down to Devon, I believe. Yeah, Devonshire. So they go down to the coast, and it's, you know, about them down there. And so this is kind of historical fiction as well, and they're both fantastic. I loved Emma Carroll's writing, but this one just really took me to the place, and I just completely fell in love with the world and the location. I really, really love this one, but this was a fantastic historical fiction as well. So yeah, I absolutely love Emma Carroll. She's become another one of my favourite authors from this year. Coming in at number 2, I have another one of these like 2-for-1 book type of things. This is the last one, I promise. And this is a series, so this is a little bit different. And this is The Legend of Peregrine by Kieran Elwood, and the sequel, The Gift of the Dark Hollow. Now, The Gift of the Dark Hollow would be my number 2 book. I absolutely loved this, but this was also fantastic. So this definitely would have made my top 5, but this one blew me away. Now, what's interesting about these books is The Legend of Peregrine was a Waterstones Children's Book of the Month, and I looked at this one and thought, it's about rabbits, there's no humans in it, am I really going to enjoy this? Shall I skip this one? That was what I thought. I thought it wasn't really for me, and I wasn't really going to, I don't know. And then I picked it up anyway. I thought, no, it was like June or something, or July. It's kind of been a while. I've been doing this book a month thing with the Waterstones, so I thought, you know, I'll give it a go. Picked it up, started reading it, completely fell in love. The writing is fantastic. It kind of reminds me of like The Hobbit, but with rabbits, and it's magical, and it just feels like a classic. I think anybody of any age could read this. I think it's just fantastic storytelling, and I absolutely love this world. I love these characters. I think it's just amazing, and I cannot wait to read more of this series. So obviously when this book came out in hardback, I picked it up. I couldn't wait to read it. I don't usually pick up hardbacks, but I just had to know what was going to happen, and I love it. And Kieran Elwood is actually coming out with a new book, not in this Peregrine series, but a different book in January. It's in the next couple of days, and I've pre-ordered that, so I absolutely can't wait to read more from him in 2018. I hope that one of his books will be my favourite for 2018 as well, because I absolutely love these, and they were completely fantastic. And I can't believe that I almost passed up reading these books just because I thought it wasn't something for me. And that's why I was really glad that I'd done the Waterstones Children's Book of the Month thing in 2017, because it really surprised me, and I managed to find some really cool gems within books that I wouldn't have picked up otherwise. So yeah, I absolutely loved these. Really fantastic stories. And finally, my number 1 favourite book of the year is The Ship Beyond Time by Heidi Heilig. And The Girl from Everywhere was my favourite book from last year, or maybe it was like tied, so it might be the second or it might have been first. And this is my absolute favourite book this year. I read this on holiday also, and for some reason, even though I loved the first one, I'd kind of put off this one, and I kind of put it off for a little bit. When I picked it up, I pre-ordered it, and then I thought, I don't know, I'll put it off for a little bit. And I thought, I'm going to take it on holiday, because I'd read The Girl from Everywhere on holiday last year, so I thought, yeah, why not? And I got completely sucked in. I loved the characters, I loved the world. It's like time travel with boats and maps, and it's just awesome. I love this series. It's one of my absolute favourite series, and I can't wait to read the 3rd book. I hope that it'll come out in 2018, but we'll have to see. And it's just fantastic. This one was definitely better than the first one. I feel like now the first one maybe wouldn't make the top spot for last year, because I feel like this just was so much better and so much cooler and improved so much on an idea from the first one. The first one's still great, but now that I've read this one, I'm like, oh well, this is great, this is amazing, I loved it. So again, I hope the 3rd one will just be even better, because that seems to be the way this is going, and I love it. So if you like fantasy and you like kind of history as well, because they go to different locations in different points in time, and they go on ships, and it's just fantastic. And the first book's called The Girl from Everywhere, but this is The Ship Beyond Time, and I really loved this. So yes, those are my top 17 books of 2017. Let me know down in the comments below some of your favourite books of the year and some books you would recommend. Let me know if you liked any of these books and they've inspired you to check them out. Thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye!